Oh my god, I keep being late with these videos. I'm sorry, but I'm here now, so let's review this. Episode 6 of The Penguin Season 1. So this episode is probably definitely my favorite so far. I know I say that basically about every episode, but no. This one stands above the rest because such good character development is within the character of Sophia Falcone, the Penguin, Salvatore, and the Penguin's mother, you know? Such good storytelling in this episode. Even though there is some negatives like the character of Dr. Julian Rush, I really am just hating his character so much as the series progresses. Like, he was good for like the backstory episode. I like the actor, but I don't want him in this, man. He's really just a useless character. He was only in this show because of the backstory of Sophia. He really should have nothing to do with this story in this episode, especially because Sophia and Salvatore team up to try to take down Oz, aka the Penguin. But that team up actually was really cool to see. I was always wondering what the interaction between Sophia and Salvatore would be, and the fact that this entire episode is based on their interaction is really well done stuff. There's like this scene where they're eating dinner together where Salvatore is making his wife's like favorite food and he's crying when eating it because the Penguin, if you don't remember from the last episode, was responsible for his wife's demise. So there's a lot of emotion there, but you could just tell the revenge, man, in this guy's eye. He really wants to kill him. And honestly, like, I was talking with a few people who already saw the episode, and they're like, well, my prediction is like, oh, Sophia is gonna kill Oz's mother in the next episode. And everybody's like, no, I don't think so. You would be surprised. Sophia has killed characters before, and nobody saw him coming, so it's unpredictable at this point. Like, I was just at the edge of my seat at the end of this episode where Sophia takes over that house with Victor and the Penguin's mother, just like dancing together because the power gets turned back on throughout the episode there was no power, no nothing, and Oz's mother was basically being tortured. At the one point she like slipped and fell in the shower and was stuck in there in like freezing cold water. You know, that was an emotional scene because honestly it made us fear for the character, because as each and every episode goes along we fear more for this character because of her dementia, or her inability to really inhabit the things around her, you know. And when Sophia comes to take over the house, you know, we really feel like fear for these characters, you know, because Sophia is honestly on a war path in this show, like especially ever since like episode 4 when we're getting like the backstory and then the new story. Like, she is on a war path against Oz, you know, war path, and honestly she's taking everybody down with her. And I'm honestly scared for the safety of Salvatore, for the safety of Oz's mother, and for the safety of Victor. And like, when I was talking to people, they were like, oh, they're not gonna kill her off, and I'm like, they might kill off Victor. Somebody needs to die in order for this story to become meaningful, because that's usually what every show or movie that has to do with this type of stuff needs, you know. Oz's mother is the only person he really cares about besides Victor, and without her, maybe there's a motive to get back at Sophia, so that way we could get this villain taken down, you know, because right now there's no motive, you know. Like, the Penguin is just trying to sell drugs and get bank so he could keep the lights on in his house and protect his mother. But if his mother is dead, then he himself will go on a war path against Sophia and Salvatore. And especially it makes sense if somebody dies, either Victor or the Penguin's mother, because like, the Penguin tried to have Salvatore janked in prison, like stabbed to death. And also the Penguin is responsible for Salvatore's wife's death, so there's some revenge needed there as well. So I think all this, the only way we could have like a true war breakout is either the death of a character like Oz's mother, or, you know, Victor. And honestly both of their character death would be sad, but if I had to choose, Victor would be the one to go, because I feel like he has the most story and the most emotion, you know, because Victor, what happens with his character in this episode is really emotional stuff, you know. Like, he has a friend who he gives money to like work together, and ultimately what ends up happening is he wants to meet the Penguin, you know, his friend wants to meet the Penguin, and Victor wants to keep their location a secret underground, and he has to kill his friend in order to keep that secret, which is one of the most emotional things in this show, because Victor really has never killed anybody, and when he kills this guy, you could really see like the sadness in his eyes, the regret in his face, you know, that he runs away when sirens start coming. It's very emotional stuff, and honestly great writing for the character of Victor and great development for his character. But after all that went went down, somebody's gonna die. Somebody on the Penguin side is gonna die, and I think it's Victor that's gonna go. Because I feel like it would be like secondhand more emotional than the death of maybe his mother, you know? Because I feel like I was talking to somebody about the episode and they like brought some sense into me that it would be probably too far and wouldn't make much sense if they would kill off the mother of Oz. But I feel like it would make sense to kill either one of them off. But at this time in the story, I feel like it would be more impactful if you killed off Victor, because he has like more emotion. He's going through like his first murder. Like there's this emotional scene between Oz and Victor where like they hug each other because the Penguin's like, yo, it'll get easier because this is a new life for him. That was the first ever person he's killed. And since Oz has killed a lot of people in his time, you know, he comforts Victor in his first murder and is like, it'll be okay. You'll get used to it, you know, because in the life they live, that's what ultimately they have to do to really protect their privacy, protect their location, you know. But honestly, just great storytelling overall in this episode. This is my favorite of the series because it is the most emotionally in depth with the story. There are several other suspenseful scenes with other characters, like when Sophia visits Eve at her house, you know, like the lady who usually comforts the Penguin. Like that's a very suspenseful scene because she was pulling a gun on her, and honestly at that point you're like, all she needs to do is click the trigger and this character is gone. But thankfully that's not what happens and Sophia leaves, you know, because that would have been an emotional death, which if she pulled that trigger I would have been shocked because I was already at the edge of my seat the entire scene. So if she pulled that trigger and killed off Eve, I would be shocked as hell. But I feel like, sure, you could have killed her off there and it would have made perfect sense, you know? She's been helping Oz. She's a threat to Sophia and Salvatore because she is helping Oz. So if she died in this episode, it would make sense story-wise, you know? Yes, it would be emotional, but we need somebody to die in this show so that way we could throw Oz off. Throw the Penguin off. So that way he could be on from A game to C game, you know? Like throw him off big time. And with the character, death of Eve or Victor or his mother, those three characters, if one of them dies, then you have an instant motive for the Penguin to kill and get rid of like Dr. Julian Rush, Sophia, Salvatore, you know? Because you know eventually this show is gonna end with probably the death of Sophia, the death of Dr. Julian, which hopefully, but like I feel like maybe Dr. Julian would die by Sophia's hand instead of the Penguin, but you could never know. And maybe like there's a little back and forth between the character of Julian and the Penguin, which I'm all in for, even though the Penguin would whip his ass, boy, like freaking dying there. But another like bad thing about this episode is the beginning scene. So unnecessary. So fucking unnecessary, bro. Like sorry for cursing there, but it was just so unnecessary, the scene that occurred between the both of them. I'm not even gonna talk about it. I honestly skipped this scene because I did not want anything to do with that, but it was a terrible opening. Let me just tell you. If you've seen the episode, you know why. But yeah, that's just really making me hate the character of Dr. Julian even more. Like I liked his character in the backstory episode for Sophia, but that's it. I don't need him in the show anymore. One episode and done. Okay, I'm pretty sure like during that episode review, I was like, oh, I want more of him? No. Now that you showed me what more of him would be, I don't want to see him ever again. In fact, I want to see his character die in the next episode. I don't care how you do it. Freaking cut his head off, blow him up. I don't care. Kill him off. Get rid of his character. He's honestly too much for the show. Too much for me at this point. I don't want him in the show anymore. But yeah, still, despite that awful intro, this is still my favorite of the series. Still my favorite. And it will remain my favorite, I highly think. I mean, maybe the season 1 finale will beat that, but who knows? It could get worse from here, or it could get better from here. Who knows? But this is my review for episode 6 of The Penguin. Bye, guys.